Bibliophiles of the internet, my name is Adriana and today I'm here to bring you a very belated July wrap-up. Obviously I meant to get this up sooner, but the past month has been extremely busy for me, what with the hiring process and starting a new job, so I figure better late than never, right? Anyways, my theme for July was just released July, so I got to focus almost exclusively on new releases. The first book I read in July was Juliet Takes by Gabby Rivera. This is queer lit. It's about Juliette, a lesbian Puerto Riqueña who comes out to her entire family the night before she flies out to Oregon to intern for her favorite feminist author. She hopes to find herself there and really break into the queer community, but she finds that it's not as simple or as clean-cut as she expected. I am officially declaring myself a champion of this book. It is invaluable queer Latinx representation. It is so important and everyone should read it. I connected with this story so much and I saw so much of my own journey reflected in Juliette's. The story really touches on how becoming well-versed in queer terminology and language is something that's a negotiation on the part of queer Latinx people because these ideas and terms don't come naturally and they don't even really exist in our own cultures. And I like that you also get to see Juliette discover the difference between spaces where you are allowed and tolerated versus spaces that were created for you and with you in mind, and that's a really important difference. I could say so much more about this book, but I wrote a very thorough and personal review on Goodreads, which I will link down below. I gave Juliet Takes a huge 5 stars. Then I read Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand. This is a middle grade story about a girl named Finley who is experiencing extreme bouts of depression and anxiety, especially in regards to her parents' impending divorce. So they send her to her grandparents' house for the summer while they try to work things out. Finley has always coped with her feelings by writing these stories about this magical forest called the Everwood, and while she's at her grandparents' house, she discovers that the Everwood is real. It's in their backyard, it's in trouble, and she is the only one who can save it. This is another incredible, important story. It really explores the process of accepting your own disposition instead of running away from it or pretending it isn't there. And the story really shows how if you pretend enough, pretending can become your reality. The story also emphasizes the power of language and how just having a name for something can bring a much needed sense of clarity and understanding, and it also touches on how real strength is knowing when to ask for help and how. Overall, just a wonderful, touching story that really blew me away. I gave this book 5 stars as well. After that, I read This Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. This is about a city that's been divided into 2 factions, humans and monsters. Kate is a human and her father is the head of the human sector offering protection at a price. August is a monster and his father is the head of the military stationed in the side overrun by monsters. I know this book is super hyped, but I found it to be pretty middle of the road, even though I did want to like it. While I did enjoy reading about the progression of these characters and their journey together, I also felt like this book was intentionally keeping its readers in the dark for no good reason, especially when it came to world building. There was so much about humans and monsters and their history that I needed to know, but I just flat out wasn't given, and not just in the gimmicky, this is just the first book kind of way. And also the pacing in this book was way off. The first half of this book awkwardly sits in limbo with nothing really important happening, and I kept waiting for some kind of overarching conflict to kick in and for some of the puzzle pieces to slowly start falling together, but the assassination attempt mentioned in the synopsis doesn't happen until over halfway through this 400-page book. Then the latter half is pretty much non-stop action, so it felt very imbalanced and a lot of it felt like filler. Plus, a lot of August and Kate's character traits felt pretty cliche, and the villainous characters in this story were just one-dimensional mustache-twirling type caricatures who I could not take seriously. When this book seemed to hit its stride towards the end, I did enjoy it for the most part, but it still felt like too little, too late, and overall I was still left with a lot of mixed feelings, so I gave it 2.5 stars. Then I read You Know Me Well by Nina LaCour and David Levithan. I did a full spoiler-free video review for this book, and if you want to know more in-depth thoughts, I will link that down below. But I had a great reading experience with this book and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Binti by Naendia Korafor. This is a sci-fi novella about a character named Binti who is the first of the Himba people to be accepted to a very exclusive university entire planets away. but if she accepts, she will have to leave behind not only her home, but also a community that respects, accepts, and practices the same beliefs and customs as her. This novella is exceptional. It really explores how those who are othered quickly learn how to internalize universal commonalities, to assimilate themselves and relate to the dominant while not expecting the dominant to try and relate to them. It also discusses how marginalized people are almost expected to give up something of themselves in order to gain access to formal education and knowledge, and by extension to be accepted by the majority, which is true. Binti faces so much adversity. Just the journey to get to this university is fraught with danger, attacks on her beliefs, and personhood. Honestly, this story is short, but it's so powerful, so well written, and so relevant. I very highly recommend it. Obviously, I gave Binti 5 stars. Then I read The Haters by Jessie Andrews. This is about a group of misfits who are at jazz camp for the summer, but they're not exactly great musicians and they don't want to be there, so they decide to abandon ship and take themselves on tour across the country because that's what you do. This book was pretty good, but nothing special in my opinion. It is pretty funny in a gritty, grimy, dirty kind of way, and the voice is definitely engaging throughout, but I didn't feel like it really worked as a whole. I did, however, appreciate that the main character was Hispanic, even if any kind of insight on culture and identity kind of stood out in a not so great way and didn't quite seem to gel with the rest of the story, but good effort. Plus, a lot of it lacks believability, and despite the fact that this story is zany and entertaining, it still somehow doesn't strike me as memorable, so I gave it 3 stars. Then I read The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Ahdieh. This was a pretty good follow-up to The Wrath and the Dawn, and I quite enjoyed it. What this series lacks in action, it more than makes up for with strong main characters. The best compliment I can give this duology is that it's sharp, it's progressive, and it gives me an incredible feminist tag team couple who I want to root for again and again. And I love reading about Shazi and Khalid's journey because they truly make each other stronger. You get to know more about Shahrazad's younger sister and her family in this installment, which is great, but overall I was still disappointed that Shiva, Shahrazad's best friend, was majorly excluded from this story, and she was not in this series nearly enough as she should have been. But this is still a powerful story about redemption, love, the importance of healing, and letting go of the past in order to strengthen your present relationships. Even though it wasn't perfect, I still really enjoyed this sequel and I gave it 4 stars. And finally, I reread Captive Prince by C.S. Pacat. Rereading this was simultaneously the best and worst decision I've ever made in my life. I had forgotten how much I love this book, how integral this first book is to the rest of the trilogy, and rereading this after having completed the whole trilogy really brought a new level of depth and enjoyment to my reading experience. All I have to say is the second I turned the last page in this book, I text Ivan and I said, Captive Prince is a 5-star book. It's been a 5-star book all along. We just couldn't see it. So many great things are being set up in this first book, and it's such an intricately layered story with such great energy. You can really see C.S. Pacat leaving open doors and creating opportunities for these characters to learn from one another and grow. I just love it so much, and I can't wait to reread Prince's Gambit. So those are the books I read in July. In the comments down below, please let me know what are some books that you're currently reading, or what are some books that you're looking forward to, because I would love to catch up. But that is everything I had for this wrap up today. Thank you so much as always for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.